or it's figuring out what you want to use your budget on. So let's say, I want to use an example because I think that would be easier. So let's say you have a family game that
Okay.
is, you want it to be able to be played with adults, but they can also play it with their kids. So how would you approach a game like that to figure out where to market with the budget?
So, we do kind of an overview, the same for most. It's like I want to say it's like a graph, really. So you
Okay.
start with things like you've got social media, you've got content creators, you've got ads, right? But you start to, the breakdown is when you get specific like that, which social media has more families on it,
Okay.
you know, Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to find moms and kids and kids groups and play groups and that sort of thing, Facebook ads are probably going to be great for you. Instagram's another good one. Pinterest is a fantastic one for families that I don't think gets utilized
Yeah,
near
I
enough.
haven't heard of many people using it at all.
I have just started and it's surprising. I mean, I guess it's not surprising, right? We pin everything. So throwing out like, right? I mean, everybody's got a wish book for
It's
something.
true.
So, and people have board game wish books, right?
That's a
So
great.
it's just another avenue. Yeah. The same goes to, ad buys. We know that places like Board Game Geek is actually better for like more heavy wargaming type folks. So that's not an avenue for the family game that you would necessarily want to pursue.
Okay.
But ads on family-based websites
Oh yeah.
would be a great target for something like that. If they're already shopping for kids' toys for the holiday or something like that, and your game pops up, there it is, right? So once again, it always comes back to that audience, right?
So once you once you're starting to think about all of these different marketing ways, do you need to know like a lot of tech? Do you need to have a lot of technical experience to be able to get your ads posted and do things like that, or is it really, because I'm not really familiar with it? So is it very user friendly to do those things if you're trying to, do it on your own?
Absolutely. I mean, so they're incentivized to make it easy for you because they want you to buy the ad space. So a lot of places, all you have to do is make up an ad of a particular size and just send it to someone and they'll throw it up there.
Okay.
Or you give it is another good example of that where, thousands of eyes per day. And when you email them, you just get an email back that just says, okay, send me a banner that's like this size and then send me a block that's like this size and we'll take care of it for you.
Ooh,
So
that's handy.
yeah, I mean, I know, right? Facebook doesn't have a person you'll talk to, but we'll walk you through literally step by step. If you make a post and you hit like the boost button, it'll just say what's the demographic, how long do you want to run it, and maybe a few more questions, and then you smash the button and it's there, it's live, and it only took you 3 minutes to put up. So I feel like it's very, very easy to do those sort of things with little to no experience.
How important is the demographics and like picking the age and picking, like how detailed do you have to be, or should you be a little broader so you don't miss out on opportunities? I don't really, what's.
I always say, like, try and get it down to what you want. You don't want to say, if your ads wind up coming in at like, 60 cents or something per, if they go to people who would never be interested in your game, then you've wasted money. It's
Yeah,
a
that's,
waste of money, right? So you want to be very specific.
okay.
If you're going, for that family target, then you want to pick out people who are already interested in family sort of topics, or in family groups. Maybe people between a certain age range, maybe people who, I don't know, live in a different part of the world, depending on what the game is, or maybe you need to narrow it down depending on if your game has a lot of language dependency, then you need to
Oh,
make sure
okay.
it's only in the areas, right? If it's not available outside of English, then some place that doesn't speak English is probably not going to be all that interested.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge advocate of, once you found that audience, start to break down what that means, and then you can really focus your ads.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I see everything kind of comes back to the target market. So that seems to be like the number one start is if you don't have that, you're kind of dead in the water with everything else.
Yeah, I think it's a little true for the design as well. Honestly,
Yeah.
if you flip the coin, Party games are, harder to market because a lot of them try and hit everyone, but the ones that focus on just exploding kittens with like
Yeah.
the kind of irreverent, almost like maybe college age, poke, poke, wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of humor did phenomenal because they identified their audience early. That's what they designed to, and that's what they marketed to. So, it was a great example of knowing from the get-go, as soon as they put that design on paper, exactly who they meant that game
Yeah.
to be for. And it found the people that it needed to be with.
So when you're figuring out I don't know how to answer this question. So here, before I ask my question, I'm going to go to the chat. We had someone ask if you would talk a little bit more about the Pinterest and how you're using Pinterest to market. So I guess if you want to go a little bit more into that while I figure out how I want to ask my question.
So similarly to Instagram, if you're familiar with Pinterest at all, you know that people will pin images that they like, and they may add some tags in there about why they pinned it. So you have a Pinterest board, the designer has a Pinterest board, the publisher has a Pinterest board, right? Make sure the images get thrown up there on those individual boards and make sure they're tagged really super well. Your pictures on the website should also have some tags embedded as well. So when people search on the internet, those are the things that come up. Oh, tags. I mean, tags are huge because that's how algorithms scroll through the internet to find things for people. So if you've got a tag on it and someone searches family-friendly games, bam, there are your images. You didn't have to do any work except for putting that tag on there initially. So
Yeah, I do that. I never really thought that tags were a big deal until I started realizing how much I use them and how handy they are. I like to look up abstract games, for example. And so I'll just look up the tag abstract games. And I've been introduced to so many different things that I didn't know about. And I've been introduced to a lot of accounts that I follow. So I can see how, now that I, use the tags, I see how they are important. But I didn't know that Pinterest had tags. I don't know much about Pinterest, so other than pinning.
The Pinterest algorithm searches for things based on what the description is and what those tags are in whatever description they've put there.
Okay.
So, yeah. So as you populate or search through, you'll just throw keywords out there because that's what the tags are, right? They're just kind of keywords. And it'll run for everybody's and see what it finds.
So what you were saying is you should also do it for your website pictures as well.
Oh yeah. Since most of the time when you're putting those on there, just like when you're adding things, sometimes there's a description that's there for the picture, right? That informs the website itself what it is in the background.
Oh, right.
You know how have you ever gone to a website and the picture doesn't work, but there seems to be words there that is exactly right. So just make sure there's tags in that as well.
Okay.
Because Google's not actually looking for a picture of a dog. It is looking for, those tags that are on the back end of it, the description on the back end of it that says dog in there somewhere.
Okay.
So, and that's how it finds it for you. So, make sure if you've got photosynthesis, for example, make sure you've got nature on there. Make sure you've got forest on there. Make sure you've got game, family game, evil tree game, all the things that photosynthesis is. And, and do that. Make sure you've done that with all of your pictures.
It's a lot of work. Do you have your clients do a lot of the work, or do they often have you do it, or do you have additional people come in to help do the technical stuff? How do you manage that all? How do you manage your time?
Coffee so much and never sleeping.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, right. I think that's all of our lives right now.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's about what the client needs, right? So there have been cases in which I've just written a marketing plan for them based on the things that they came to me with.
Okay.
After they answered, I got like a little short sheet that I'll send people who need a marketing plan, and I'll ask them things like, who's your audience? What have you considered for a budget? What avenues have you pursued? How long do you have is another big one.
Mm-hmm.
And you never be too far in front of this. I've had a few people come in at like 3 or 4 weeks and their things have not gone as well as they could have because they just didn't start early enough. Like, you have to have that name out there.
Is there like a sweet spot that you would say to start, like the trickle marketing where you're just putting your feelers out, not full blown ads, but You're starting to
I mean,
stir up.
as soon as you feel like you've got a product that you're going to bring to market, that's ready to put on like BGG or something like that, start, get it up on BGG. Start a designer diary there in the forum. People love to see the process because they become invested in your game the more they see. If you go to one of the design or art groups and start putting the art that is still being developed in there and asking people to vote, would you like to see that image? People love to feel invested in your game that way because then when they see it later, they go, "Oh, I voted for that image. I helped with
I know.
that."
I do get a feeling when I'm like, see, they just took my recommendation, so this is basically my game.
Exactly. I mean, it's a type of ownership, and that makes people excited. Not only do they buy your game, they become an advocate for your game, which is worth money at that point. I mean, if you can get one person to start actually advocating for your game, that's worth, 10 people just going in and dropping some money and then leaving your website.
Definitely.
I mean, you didn't pay that person. That person has no stake, but they will bring so much enthusiasm. People feel that. People feel that authenticity. When someone gets on somewhere and it's like, I just played this game. It was ballin'. You guys need to check this out. You all need to check this out. And that's the kind of, that's gold in marketing right there, is just having someone who becomes an advocate for your game.
Definitely, especially when they, like you said, they have a passion for it. They're not just someone that you hire to go and spread the word. They want to. They're not just here for the money. So
right, exactly.
The question that I was going to ask earlier was about the target market. What you mentioned, that it's also the designer target market. So do you work, because you work with publishers a lot, do you find yourself working with designers often as well when you're dealing with the process of marketing?
Since so many people are moving now into self-publishing, designers do Kickstarters, not just publishers, small indie publishers, but there are a lot of people that their first game, they put it up on Kickstarter, or it's on the Game Crafter and they want to do promotion for it. I know someone actually working on a game right now, someone who's got a game on the Game Crafter who is having a sale like in a month or so. And she wants to know what she can do to kind of get the game out there so people know about it. And then she can say, and then hit it up next month when it's on sale, kind of thing. So lately, I've been working with, I would almost say equal at this point, designers and publishers.
Okay, that's great. So then the target market you find tends to be the same that the design, because I guess if it would be the same if the designer and the publisher are the same person. It's who they're envisioning playing the game.
It's kind of easier, right? Because the designer usually already had someone in mind, whether it was just like, people like me or whoever that they were designing to in the first place. So it's much more easy for them to indicate what their market was, their target audience.
That's great. So then I'm just putting that out there for the publishers that aren't putting out their own designs or putting out designs of others, to bring in the designer into some of the marketing, try to figure out who they made the game for, because that's how you're going to figure out who wants the game in the first place.
Absolutely. The designer contribute a lot to marketing, actually, because people want that in. People want to be able to talk to the person who made it, the creator. It's like talking to someone who painted a picture for you or something like that.
You almost get it's like starstruck when you talk to a designer. It's funny.
You made that game? Oh my gosh. I still do it at cons when I run into people who design some of my favorite games. Like,
it's fun.
Yeah. If I ever meet like Anton Bowden, I would probably straight up faint. Like, I do. I get a little, so when people feel like they have that connection, plus the designer can really talk in great detail about things like the process, the decisions they made, and they can help answer questions when rules questions start to roll in. When you put like your rule book up on BGG and people are like, well, I saw in like line 4 of so-and-so that this is supposed to do this. What does that mean? That's something usually the designer can help answer as well. And during a Kickstarter campaign, having anyone help you with the comment section is also gold.
So once, I'm just trying to think if there's any other, I feel like we talked so much about the target market, trying to think of it, but it's so important.
Right. It really, really is. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything outside of that
I
that I
liked
got.
that you mentioned how you cover there's you said there's content creation, there's ads, and then there was what was your third? You had them in sections.
I think it was it social
Oh
media?
yes. So I like
Hmm.
how you separated that. And do you find having them in sections helps to figure out how to split the marketing, like the time? Oh, I hit my mic.
A little bit. I mean, as we put the timeline into place after we've set up the marketing plan, right? Some of this stuff happens concurrently,
Okay.
but some of these, right, you have to have a creator create something in order for you to share it on social
Yeah,
media.
that's
So
true.
sometimes it's not gonna be like, you have to have set up, oh, I'll send you this game 2 months out. I hope to see what you created in 6 weeks. And then that's, 4 weeks before my campaign starts. So I can then do things with that. So a lot of that's timing.
Okay.
Um, ads, you may start ads a couple of weeks before your Kickstarter or your game launch or something like that, but
Okay.
that's something that usually runs, a little bit beforehand all the way through it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not as much dividing them up for, say, the budget or anything specific beyond keeping that timeline straight, because the time can get away from you as well if you kind of forget to check in with your content creators and
Yeah.
don't write your ad copy until like the night before, and then you're trying to slam out and schedule ads, like and that's tough.
Yeah, and you can kind of sometimes you can feel the rush. You just don't feel like you did enough of a good. At least I know if I'm rushed, I just even if I did a great job, I feel like because I was rushed, I didn't do the best job. So
Yeah, I think you're always going to feel a little rushed, right? Because you're always going to feel like you forgot something, or there
that's
was some
true.
avenue you could have explored, but you didn't, or you just didn't have time. Um, I always tell people to expect something completely crazy and unexpected to happen,
Okay.
because it will, like, something mad's going to come up, like, and you won't be able to plan for it. It's just going to happen. So go ahead. And if you need to worry about it this second, worry about it this second now, and then deal with it when it happens. So, I mean,
Expect the unexpected.
exactly. Like technical difficulties during
Yeah.
live streams. They're always going to happen.
That was the first time that I've dropped out of network too. I think it was just I don't know, my computer did a thing and so I had to restart it, but
Internet jump.
we fixed
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I've kept you a little while. I don't want to keep you too long. Are you available for hire? If anyone wanted, I don't know if anyone can approach you just to ask questions and ask you, by the hour to get your advice, or if someone wanted to reach out to you, how do they do that?
You can always send me a message through Twitter, girlsplay_games. Email is great, jackson.annamaria@gmail.com. You can reach me through GGS, and that's fine too, really.
Mm-hmm.
Any way you think you can get hold of me. And we can always talk about your project, and I can see what you think you need. If it's not something I'm able to fit into my calendar right now, I'm building like a little network of people who also do this type of work, so I can usually find somebody who might be a better fit or will be available.
Okay.
So,
Before I,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Okay. Before I know I keep I'm afraid I'm going to interrupt you. Someone just asked if you know of websites that have really good conversion rates for board game ads. If you have if you have any that are your favorites that you tend to go to often.
not really, honestly. I mean, there are some avenues that do better consistently, but some of that just winds up being so individual
Okay.
that I hate for focused on, this is the one thing that I will do and it will bring me $1 billion in board game revenue, which is like $10 in real people money.
Mm-hmm.
Because the woman who designed an amazing war game and did ads on BGG is going to give you a number, and then your family game about flipping frogs is not going to perform that way.
Okay.
So I say, I mean, I'm sure those things are out there. It's not something I necessarily encourage people to get too over invested in everyone else's numbers and how everyone else performed, because you're an individual, your game's individual. Think specifically about your game when you're doing those things. If there was a perfect answer, none of us would be necessary, and I would not be working this job, and
Mm-hmm.
Cassie would not be doing things here. Like, there's no perfect answer for everyone. You're gonna have to reinvent that wheel a little bit, and it's okay. It's your baby. You want it to be perfect.
Right.
So, yeah.
And before I let you go, I have one question for myself, and it is,
Okay.
how do you schedule yourself by paper? Do you have like a paper planner, or do you have a digital app? How do you schedule yourself? Oh, yay, you do paper.
Yeah, I still write my papers I'm still working on my master's.
Oh,
I
great.
still write my papers longhand before I type them out. So I am super, super, super old school about that. It just helps me to have that physical note,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ability to go, you know what, I'm done, and like physically cross it out. And I feel good, like I accomplished
It
something.
is.
Because,
It's like a nice,
yeah, but
satisfying feeling.
you take jobs, and you're in kind of the hustle economy. Sometimes it can feel like it's never done. So having that physical list and being able to like look back and go, I did all this stuff today. Go
Mm-hmm.
for me. It's helpful. So,
Cool.
and, yeah.
I love the paper ones too. I have two journals. I have one that I keep track of just like notes and stuff, and then the other one that I keep track of like my dates and my
Yeah.
appointments, my doctor visits, all that stuff. And so I'm totally, if I keep it in my phone, I forget. So I have to have it on paper. Same thing. I like to just write everything out.
Yeah, the calendar we share, but I mean, up until Ray left for school, there were 5 of us on one calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So we just shared one like big Google calendar, but I still wrote all my stuff down. I've still got my schedule in here from Washington this
Oh,
weekend, like where
yeah.
I was just like times, just so I would remember. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm always a little afraid too that the phone's gonna die and then I'll have nothing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then I'll just run around crazy woman. So I mean, I do a little of that anyway,
It's
but
fine.
more so.
I think we're all a little bit of crazy, running around a little bit
Yep.
with our heads cut off.
I mean, that's why we're in this job, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's all. Those are all the questions I had. Did you have anything that that we didn't touch on that you wanted to share with everybody? I didn't want to keep you too long. And while we're chatting about planners, we can go off the air and talk more about planning.
That's fair. No, the only thing I could think of is I got the best advice this weekend from a 12-year-old.
Go on.
And she was talking about being criticized and failing at things. And what she said was, you shouldn't be afraid of it because you'll only get better. Like, you're going to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, you're 12 and I'm 44, and I still don't have that one wrapped completely around in my head with a little
Oh,
bow.
I'm terrified of
But it
failure.
was, right, but you're going to launch an ad that doesn't turn over anyone, and you're going to feel terrible about it. Or you're going to put a picture out there and you thought it was gorgeous and everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's like awful.
Yeah.
Stuff is going to happen, and you learn. I don't make pictures like that anymore. I don't write ads like that anymore. You will learn so much from your first Kickstarter. You will learn so much from your 12th Kickstarter. I think I've done 15 or 16 now.
Oh, wow.
Every single one, even the one I just wrapped up with Dan, I learned so much during that Kickstarter. I never feel like I know, and it's amazing, really. It's really cool. It's really why I like being in this industry, because there's never a point where you feel like, oh, I know everything now, so I
I
can move on.
know. I feel like imposter syndrome is a big thing for everybody in the industry because, I guess it is because you have to be accepting that you have to just keep learning. You're never going to be, people will claim to be an expert, but we're all still just learning. And so you can be an
Absolutely.
expert, you're a here expert, but you're not a peer expert. There's just,
Exactly. And as long as this hobby continues to evolve and get bigger and bring more people in, that's going to make other people experts, and it's going to take away other people's expertise, and all sorts of stuff. So
and
we're
things
we're all in the
change.
same boat. I mean, we're all floating on the same lake, and we all want all of our boats to go up together. So I mean, it's a good place to be.
I agree. So, if anybody's worried, make sure you try not to be worried because we all are learning and we're all
Absolutely.
failing and learning from our mistakes is the final word of the day.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on the show, AnnaMaria Jackson-Phelps, the longest name again. I just wanted to say your whole name. because it's a fun name to say. But anyways, thank you for being on the show. And sorry about the technical difficulties, everybody, but we got it all fixed. You gave me a lot of information, and I think that's really interesting. I hadn't had anyone mention Pinterest before, so that was really interesting to hear about.
Okay.
So I'm definitely going to check that out some more.
Fantastic. You learned.
I know.
So.
I always learn whenever I have someone on the show, and I try to keep track of notes, and it's so hard for me to get back to watching my episodes because it's like I was just talking to this person. I should remember everything, and so I'm like trying to keep track, paper and pen, keeping track of my notes, but it doesn't always work out. So. Yeah. I am learning, and I appreciate you coming on the show. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to her. She is available, and if she is not available to help you, she will help find someone who is available, or we'll keep going and we'll get you taken care of is what we're getting at. So
that's right.
Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I appreciate you spending time with me, and everybody. Yeah, thanks for. I love your background, by the way. I know it's new. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming and watching Crowd Chat, and I will see you all next week at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on The Game Crafter. Bye.